Hey there, thank you so much for being here. This is episode 39 of the Positioning to Profit podcast. I'm so excited to feature today's guest, Hallie Bulkin. She's a speech pathologist by trade, had a brick and mortar, and is now moving into the online space. What makes her so special is she's talking about her niche. I mean, outside the fact that she's really cool, but she's going to be talking about how she niched down, creating this new opportunity, moving her business from brick and mortar into the online space, and what I believe is a unicorn opportunity. It is super exciting, and you're going to find out how she's done it all with proper positioning, and I say bravo. So this episode is a special one. Make sure to stay till the end so you can catch Hallie's freebie as well. All right, here we go. Hey there, I'm Patty Dominguez. You're about to discover what it means to position your brand and your business to stand out. This show explores the stories of small business owners just like you who are bringing their message out to the world and impacting their tribe. So if you want to take your business to a category of one status, then hang with me because this podcast shares everything you need to know about how to be more prolific with your brand so that you can have more profits. Hallie, thank you so much for being on the Positioning to Profit podcast. I so appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I know, and it's so cool because most of the time I speak to people who are in the marketing side, they're marketing experts, but as I was perusing, and you and I have both been fellow coaches in a group coaching program that Jim Fortin has, and never really got to understand. I know you work with kids somehow, but I didn't really understand just how extensive it is what you do. So would love to hear, for the benefit of the listeners, just a 3-minute story about your background prior to doing the coaching that you're doing now, or
Sure.
and what's going on.
Absolutely. So let's see, rewind about 10 years or so, graduated from speech with a master's in speech language therapy and went on to work for the public schools. Really didn't love that environment because I didn't feel like I could give the kids what they needed. And they wouldn't let me work on feeding therapy, which was something that I felt all children need access to benefit. You need to be able to eat to excel in school. So I left and I actually took a little break from being a speech pathologist, did some network marketing. And then it was like, I really miss the kids. So I went and I worked for a private practice for a year before opening my own. And so now we're fast forwarding about 4 years from graduation into 2014 when I launched my practice. And when I launched my practice, I launched it so that we were traveling around to families' homes and preschools and daycares so that we were going to the families, because in the DC metro area where I'm located, DC, Maryland, Virginia, we have a lot of dual working families, but they want to provide these services to their children. And it's impossible to see everybody after school hours. There's just not enough clinicians. So I started doing that. I needed some help. I brought on some other therapists who work with me, and I now have a team of about 20 therapists who see the bulk of our patients in the DC metro area. And I currently treat a day and a half out of my home office because I still enjoy doing it. But the reason why I have now created the current business was I had a baby, my first child, who was tongue-tied and an awful nurser. And, we did still do 13 months of nursing, even though it was painful and not enjoyable. And I was determined to figure out how I could help her and how I could help other children and moms avoid what I went through. And that kind of threw me into this other world of orofacial myology, which is within my scope, but not something I learned in grad school. Mind you, I also did not learn about pediatric feeding in grad school. So here I am. It's now been 10 years since I've graduated, and I've spent thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars and a lot of time traveling to courses, learning what I wasn't taught. And so I think that has helped me really niche down in my local private practice. So even though my practice does provide general speech language therapy services, occupational therapy services, feeding therapy, and orofacial myology, it's a mouthful, we are very niche in that we provide these feeding and myo services, orofacial myology services, for a lot of children who are tongue-tied or who have been in speech therapy their whole life, and they're 13 and nobody's been able to help them progress. I also work with adults who have orthodontic relapse because of a tongue thrust and other facial issues and things related to what's going on in their mouth. And so, to make a long story short, essentially what I realized is there just isn't enough education in this space. And if you while there is a lot more that people are starting to provide, you still have to take time off of work, spend thousands of dollars for the courses and to travel away from your family, away from, your life and away from your patients who then don't get the services if you have to cancel to, constantly travel. And I think I did 140 plus hours in the past year and a half in education alone, not because I needed that to maintain the license, but because I was seeking, it's like, you don't know what you don't know. So I was just seeking more information in this space. And so as we become more niche in my private practice, I realized how much of a need there is for this out in the world. And so what we've decided to do, and you can stop me if I'm getting ahead.
You're getting ahead because I actually have some questions that would be really helpful. And I, of course, want to hear about what's going on, but just kind of hearing the fact that you used to work in the school system and then you went the brick and mortar route, I think and I don't want to gloss over this, just how impressive it is that you've built your practice of 20 therapists, I think it is. But I mean, how did you start from the marketing side, marketing your business early on, right? So kind of putting ourselves in the shoes of an aspiring practice owner. You did it. Did you hit the ground running? Did you hire an agency? How did you know what to do from a marketing standpoint to get the word out there to people?
I basically just started telling anybody and everybody that I knew that I was going into business for myself. I did know a lot of preschool, like private preschool programs. And so I had a relationship already with some of the coordinators there. And so, I let some of them know, and they either said, well, hey, would you be available to screen some of our kids? Or, and so it was more so just getting the word out there, sharing with everybody I knew. I did not hire a marketing agency. I had really little marketing experience. The only experience I'd had was I had worked with an online marketer for a network marketing company that I had gotten involved in. And that's how I left, actually. That's how I left my first position, was I replaced that income in the schools with a network marketing company. And once I did that, it was like, okay, I can go do different things now. So that definitely helped me learn a little bit about how to position myself so that I'm different from everybody else. But I will tell you, there is literally a speech language pathologist every 5 minutes as you drive down the road here in DC Metro. And most people are in business for themselves. There are some large practices, but a lot of people see clients on their own here and or have full-time jobs and then see clients on the side. So if you want to ask, if you want to talk about competition, people would say there's tons of competition. I was so naive in 2014 that I just put my head down. I had very little idea what my competition even looked like. And I just positioned it as, we travel to you, we're providing a boutique service. We understand how busy your life is and how you want to provide your child with quality services to get them from point A to point B like this. We come to you. And I think the fact that we traveled to families, homes, preschools, private schools, after school programs, that was enough to just fill the schedule. And then within 4 months, I knew I was pregnant and I knew I needed more help. And I didn't want to see kids after school because I was starting at 8 a.m. 4 days a week. And so I immediately that's when I brought on my first contractor. And I will tell you, it kind of all just happened by accident. I did not have a plan. Fast forward to year 3 of the business, I did hire a marketing person, not because I felt like I needed it at the time, but because I had 2 really amazing therapists who wanted more clients and I wanted to get them more clients faster. And they were happy, they were content, but I was like, I don't want to lose them. I don't want them to start looking elsewhere because, they have almost enough clients, but not quite enough. And so to kind of keep them happy, I was like, let's just bring on a marketing person and see what we can do. And it's funny because she had me sit down and really look at what are the rates in the area and are you competitive with them? And I was. What are other people offering? Where do you want to be a year, 3 years, 5 years from now? And I had never stopped to sit down and do that. I had no business plan when I started. I do business plans on a napkin. I'm like, here's my business, here's the name, let's create a logo, let's just position ourselves as actually being in business. And I went on the IRS and I was like, what do I need to get started? That was kind of how I started things. So
yeah, because it was like, I mean, most people, when they're starting out their business, they're focused on that specialty that they have and they think that that's enough. I mean, you hang your shingle out, so to speak, and then you're just like, okay, I'm ready. And then you're doing the networking, to your point. But I think I don't want to gloss over the fact that you kind of positioned yourself, the differentiation was that concierge level type of service that was different. And I want to bring that up because you kind of fell into the fact that you were meeting, a need for your prospects to make it easy, make it convenient, being the solution. So just kind of, checking off all of these behavioral reasons of why people buy, you were meeting it without even knowing that you did it. So good on you, you know what I mean? Because you did that.
Yeah.
And then the other side of it is like, well, so what, year 3, you finally hired somebody to kind of help you with your marketing? Was that year 2?
So I think it was year 3. And she only really helped me for a couple of months. We kind of sat down, we put together a plan. She gave me some ideas and, she said to me, she's like, I give you things and you implement them. So this is fun. So I am a good listener.
You're a great client. You're a great client. That's like a dream client, And so really it sounds like then as you've been going through your business relatively quickly, you've been niching down. And is that how you found that the differentiation is even more significant because you're able to niche down? So do you still have your other offerings, it sounds like, and then now you're just kind of specializing so that you're like the only game in town that can do what you do? And how did you get to that point?
Yes. And it's interesting because we're not the only game in town anymore. I think when I started, I was like one of 3, and now I'm probably one of 25 because everyone has realized how this is what's happening and they all want a piece of it. Right. But kind of going back, I was only one of 3 with the certification in orofacial myology. And so that's COM after the name. I was one of 4 in the state of Maryland, but one of 3 who owns our own business, and there's only one other one who owns a business with that same certification in my area. She's in network with insurance. I do not take insurance. I'm private pay. So, and they're doing 30-minute sessions and, because it's insurance based, and we provide usually a longer session. So it's, there is a need for everything, right? And so I felt, well, we've got one part of the market, they've got the other part of the market. And sometimes that part of the market comes to us too. Even though they prefer insurance, they see the value in what we do and they are happy to private pay and submit on their own. One thing that I did to position myself differently was I realized, well, even people who are happy to private pay would probably still sometimes like to submit to insurance and see if they can get money back. So we created a guide, and I basically told them, hey, if you call insurance and say X, Y, and Z and request this, you can actually get them to treat us as though we're in network, even though we're out of network. And then when we send you your paid bill at the end of the month, you just take that and send it into insurance and they'll reimburse you directly. So we've removed ourselves from dealing with insurance, but we've now guided our patients in how they can submit. So we're still now up there in competition with the others, but providing what I consider a more boutique service for these patients.
That's really smart because you took away that reason why somebody else wouldn't hire you. You said, okay, ours is more boutique. We give you better service, presumably, right? Because it's a longer session, more customized in nature. And if the obstacle is insurance, oh, by the way, here's our quick little guide, which so smart that you did that, to really, so you're basically removing the friction of why they would potentially say no, right?
Yeah, and we're traveling to them. So they also get us, I no longer travel. I'm more expensive and I only work out of my home office. But we also offer teletherapy. So that's something else that we added on where we can also provide this over telepractice. And sometimes the sessions can be shorter. Sometimes we can do a shorter session and we can do it, at a little bit less of a fee. Depends on how involved the case is and what type of therapy is needed. So I will say, yes, while we do still provide all of these other services, we are very niche and we've become known for the myofunctional therapy, the feeding therapy, the tongue tie, when they need these frenectomies, these tongue tie releases in infants, toddlers, school-age children, adults. We've become known for being able to help treat these cases. And I will add that one thing I did, because we did start working with older kids and adults, is we took Little Sprouts. It used to be Little Sprouts Speech, which about a couple years ago, I rebranded that as Little Sprouts Therapy to cover everything. And then I went, adults, I don't know if adults will realize that we treat them for little sprouts. So I then created Metro Myo, and Metro Myo is the myofunctional side, even though if you go to metromyo.com, it takes you to our Little Sprout page, which tells you that we treat adults and kids. So, so I've definitely done some things in the years, and these are, I mean, when I say I like do business planning on a napkin, these are things that just come to me in my, my sleep. And I'm like, oh, we should probably do that.
You're divinely guided, my friend, because that's some pretty good stuff, because most people, I always say, I call it random acts of marketing, which literally 99.9% of people kind of fall into. They're like, well, we don't know why that didn't work. And I'm like, well, because there was no real reason or rigor behind what you were doing. Of course it didn't work. It's just so random. Yeah. But I feel like this is a good thing. Don't stop doing where you're getting these downloads. It's like innately in a former life, you were probably a marketing genius, because this is pretty amazing that you're doing this. So specific to, and I heard you say that you're doing more of the teletherapy or virtual therapy or what have you. So is that really where your expansion is coming in terms of an innovative approach to reaching outside of like that metro area? Are other people doing that as well?
So yes and no. Here's the tricky thing. When it comes to myofunctional therapy, registered dental hygienists can do it too. They are not constrained by a local license that says, hey, you can only treat in the states you're licensed in or where the person is abiding. And so, or residing, not abiding, residing. So they actually have further reach than we do. Whereas as a speech pathologist, I'm licensed in the state of Maryland and DC. I have people who are in Maryland, DC, and or Virginia. And so we can cover those areas right now, but our state licenses, for the most part, tell us, and our national license, or certification, I should say, tells us that we cannot treat people outside of the states that we are licensed in and that these people exist. So we need to be licensed where our patient is. They're actually looking to change that, but that'll probably take another 4 years, the way that these things operate. So what we've really used that as is just another positioning tool where, oh, hey, traffic stinks around here. We can't get somebody out to you. But if you're open to it, we do offer teletherapy, and we're happy to hop on, a Zoom with you. It's HIPAA compliant and provide you with therapy that way. Sometimes we'll require them to come in for the evaluation in person, and then maybe we'll do a check-in in person occasionally because they are pretty local. But this is a way that we can definitely, again, meet any needs of people who maybe don't want to come to us, but we can't get to them because of schedule reasons.
Okay, we're about halfway through with this episode, but I wanted to make sure that you knew about my new Positioning to Profit quiz so that you can discover how to use the key pillars of positioning to give yourself the ultimate edge for your business. It's an assessment, personalized plan of action to overcome these roadblocks that are keeping you from even more profit. So head on over to positioningquiz.com. All right, let's continue with the show. Well, it's so smart, Hallie. And now that, just innovation or innovatively, you've come up with a new product. So now you are moving into the online marketing space. So could you tell us a little bit about what you're doing and the early stuff that you've been doing to get the word out? Because this is really interesting.
Sure. So for this, I did hire a marketing team because online, while I am all over like marketing myself and what I'm doing on Instagram and Facebook, as far as like creating actual Facebook ads and creating a marketing plan on the calendar of what's needed, when it's needed, and then also a copywriter, I have hired that I have a team. So I don't want people to think that's all me because I have a fabulous team behind that online piece. But what we're doing, going back to the story before, I was sharing that we realized that most people, including myself, did not get the training to become a pediatric feeding therapist back in grad school. We usually get trained on working with adults. And so it's a completely different beast when you're working with pediatrics, especially children who were premature, maybe had a NICU stay, maybe were intubated. Some kids have feeding tubes, some kids have other diagnoses. It's just it's very different working with that population. Sometimes you get those picky eaters who are selective, and there is some oral motor stuff going on in their mouth. And so what we realized was a lot of the schools were teaching that, well, you don't need to deal with oral motor stuff. Like, that's not a real thing, based on like a couple of bad studies and not looking at the support that was out there. So there's a lot of people doing research in this area, and there's a lot of clinicians who have taken courses but do not feel confident or competent to go and treat these cases or even to take them on to learn because they feel like there isn't enough support. So what we have done, I want to put this disclaimer out there, I'm not putting down the courses that are out there because they're taught by a lot of my colleagues who I adore and who I think are phenomenal people. They've done research. They have 20, 30, 15 years of experience under their belt. They're phenomenal courses. The problem is if you don't currently have a caseload of patients and you take this course and you go back and you don't immediately implement it, it just becomes another course that you took on your bookshelf. And there also is not usually, there's not support after you leave a course like this. So what we decided we wanted to do was we wanted to kind of see if there's interest in people doing an online course where we can offer, yes, we will teach you the content you need to know, but we're also going to work on your mindset because a lot of you already have these ingrained in your brain that you can't do this, that you're not competent, that you're not a confident therapist. And we want you to know that you have taken a lot of courses, you can do this. And some people are brand new and haven't taken the courses. So it is for them too. But we wanted to create a 12-week course. And that's what we've done. It's called Feed the Peds. And our idea is basically taking occupational therapists and speech language pathologists that want to be feeding therapists because it's in scope for both of those practitioners, and teach you how to become a competent and confident feeding therapist. So we'll give you all of the clinical information you need. We're going to have case studies every week that we're going to have them do as homework prior to actually sitting in on the training so that they can start to see, oh, I already knew this. Okay, what did I learn from this training? What else can I go back and apply? Just so they can see where they are. And I think that will also help with some of that mindset stuff. I do have an onboarding bonus where we're going to work on a lot of that mindset, subconscious beliefs, just from the get-go before we even get into the content. And then we're also going to provide that support. So you can come back into the private group on Facebook and talk to the people who are teaching it. And it's not just me. I've taken area experts and we are teaching on our expertise. So I think I teach 3 of the 12, maybe 4 of the 12 modules, and the rest are a team of 5 other feeding specialists.
So has that launched already?
So that's launching in March, mid-March. What we did launch was a free pediatric feeding screener. So you download it and you can go start screening these kids to see who needs feeding therapy or who needs a full evaluation to see if feeding therapy is warranted. And we've had over 4,000 speech pathologists and occupational therapists opt into that in the past 5 weeks.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. And how are you getting the word out? Is this via Facebook ads or Instagram? How are you doing that?
So we're doing Facebook ads. We do have one post going up on Facebook every day, but that's not really connected to the Facebook ads that we're doing per se. Sometimes we might, turn one of those into an ad. I'm posting on Instagram, but the majority of people are coming through those Facebook ads.
That's so fantastic. And are you doing just for the benefit of what's working in your space? Is it a picture? Are you leveraging video? What are you using in the ads that you found that's worked? Because don't tell me that the first ad you put out there worked, because then I'm literally going to throw my computer away.
No. Well, the first ads they put out there did work, but they split test, right? So remember I told you I have a Facebook ads team.
Yes.
I think they tested 5 to 10 things very quickly, and they were very, very quickly able to see what was working. And so I think it's somewhere around 26 cents per opt-in.
Stop.
We're getting people onto the list. And out of those, I think it might be up to 4,500 now, but it's above 4,000 that have opted in. And a couple hundred of them are on the wait list for the course. And we haven't really even promoted it. It was kind of just in the bottom of the second email they got in the email campaign. So
you're in a great niche. That's why. Yeah. Cause you're in a great niche. Cause I can tell you, say, comparatively speaking, in the health niche, I mean, we're lucky to get leads at under $5 a lead.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's somewhere between $2.50 and $5. So to hear that you're getting your leads at roughly a quarter or so is really, really astonishing. And I say this because a lot of people say, oh, you can't do anything on Facebook. It's so expensive. Not necessarily if you're in the right niche that is basically untapped, which is where you're at, which is really, really great. So you're it's like 2011 for you right now. You know what I mean? You could get leads at that rate, which is so fantastic. So then when it launches, what are you forecasting to be? I mean, we know that a percentage of these people are going to opt in. Are you guys, is this the unicorn product out of the gate, I feel like?
So what I basically told the marketing team when I started with them was, this is a 6-figure launch. So you tell me what, and I knew that this would change once we started Facebook ads and we would adjust based on what we felt we needed to invest. But I said, you tell me what you think I need to invest in Facebook ads and to get us to that, to that that launch. You know, we haven't announced the price yet, but we're looking at putting it out for $997 for the first round at beta price. And then it will jump up probably to $1,500 and then to $2,000 by the third time that we launch it. And this is the market where someone would argue, oh, they're not going to pay for that. Or, oh, you know, we're giving you a lot of experts. We're giving you continuing education credits that you can use. We're giving you a lot of hands-on support, and nobody's ever done anything like this. I do have one colleague in the space who has this membership she's created, and this is her team. She's shared her team with me, and she's actually been through Jim's program as well. And she's doing phenomenally well in the online space. Like we're talking, you know, probably 7 figures. So I knew going in that I think this was somewhat of an untapped market, just in terms of what we're offering and how we're positioning ourselves, because there are online programs, but it's like a 1-hour training, a 2-hour training, or you can do this training online, but you don't get any support once it ends, or you don't really get anything outside of that 1 or 2 hours. And so that's where we're different, right? We're giving them support. We're kind of doing a little more hand holding. But we're also positioning it as though you're going to get some mindset and some subconscious belief. Like when you walk out of here, you will be confident and competent to take on a couple of private clients if that's what you desire, or to start your own business if that's what you desire, or to, you know, work with those kids in the clinic that already exist that you've been declining working with, even though you want to, because you just didn't feel competent and confident enough. So, you know, we've kind of positioned ourselves that way. And, you know, and I have done coaching in the past, but I've mostly coached on taking people from either being in network to out of network with insurances and being private pay and growing their local private practice, and or just starting a local private practice. And I really enjoy the coaching side of it. So for me, that's also really exciting to be able to bring that to this program as well.
Hallie, I'm so excited for you. So where do you see, okay, it's December, end of this year. Where do you look back and see? I mean, you said your first launch is going to be a 6-figure launch. I mean, from everything that you're saying, this is a multiple 7-figure product that you have on the horizon.
So my goal for this year is $3.5 million, if we're just talking numbers. But what that looks like is launching this 3 times this year and increasing the price, you know, as I mentioned, with each launch, and then keeping it probably around $2,000. But we'll see what the market responds to, and if we can even increase it the following year. But at the end of this year, my goal is also, once we're halfway through the first beta launch of this program, my goal is to put together a membership. And so either we're trying to decide where that's going to go. And I'm going to poll the people who are in the group to determine, does that look like something where we continue to support them in the feeding arena, or will they feel like those other courses after they've taken ours can kind of keep filling that need? And do they, you know, would they rather have myofunctional therapy, orofacial myofunctional therapy support in a membership site, because that's really, really niche down, you know, and you need a feeding background, in my opinion, to do that. So now we've prepped you for this. Now let's take you to the next level. And, or do they want more business support, or a combination? So I'm kind of, you know, toying with what that membership will look like, but definitely launching the membership in the second quarter of this year to the people in the program that go through our program initially. And then by Q3 doing a high ticket type of mastermind as well. And,
that's perfect.
You know, and everyone says, well, what is that going to look like? I'm like, I'm going to base it on the needs of my market.
Yeah. You just ask them what they're looking for and how they can best, I mean, even going into the business side of things, like your structure, right? Like the business in a box of what it is that you do. I mean, it could go a lot of different places, but the fact is when they invest in the initial program, the membership is an easy opt-in right after that. Like it's just a natural progression. Like, yes, this worked. Give me more of that, you know, which is so great. Good for you. You've got it together, girlfriend. Okay. So we're transitioning out because we're like totally blown away with how awesome everything you do. Like, can you touch, it's like you're the Midas touch, Hallie. Okay. So, what, totally going off on a different tangent here, what cool tool have you discovered that has made your life easier lately? A cool tool.
A cool tool. I'd say a couple of them. I was already using like email marketing software for the local private practice and sending out like a monthly newsletter, keeping in touch with past patients. But we moved everything over to Kajabi, which I think has been super helpful because the course will be in there. The email stuff is in there. We're even going to put my local private practice on there. So that's been amazing. But I'd say that, while I'm like the big mind behind everything, I'm not good at the little details. I can get good at them, but I don't enjoy it.
You don't need to. Yeah.
Right. So, I would rather just like email my virtual assistant and have him put something in there. So we played around with some other programs, and the two that we landed on, like, see this, I can't even remember in my brain because details. Slack. So we use Slack a lot to communicate. Both like I got two separate channels going based on who we're communicating with, and then we're using Airtable to put everything in, and it just makes so much sense to organize things that way. So yes, those are my favorite tools at the moment.
Yeah, I had tried to get into Airtable. It looks cool, but I don't know. I can't get off with the Google suite of products. I just do everything on Google. I'm like, and I tell people, and I tell people, I'm like, why complicate stuff? Whether it's slides, because I have one client of mine, she's like, well, we do Keynote. I'm like, just do it in Google. Like, it's so much easier. Like everything is so much easier. Just do the Google suite. But I agree with Slack in lieu of just the insane amounts of email that come through. I am a hardcore user of Slack as well. So I completely agree.
Yeah. And I do use the Google Suite stuff. I use all of that. And so I will go into Airtable and I'll say, go to this folder. It's in here. Or they just know. They know, like, okay, Hallie, like, you want us to do this, and we know to go look for it in Google Suites. And it might take them an extra minute, but yeah,
But you know what's so great is that you really recognize that, and this is such a key and important point to not just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. And you should stay in your zone of genius as the creator, as the visionary of your business. And so many people get bogged down with the tools and the little things. And it's like, no, don't do that. Your hour is worth so much more than that. So you're so smart for understanding and really living by that way of operating.
Well, pre Jim Fortin, I was doing it all myself. And then I met Jim, and he basically slapped me upside the head and said, stop doing it.
Isn't it liberating?
It's like, stop being a doer.
Good for you. And therein lies why you can have that conversation and saying that you're forecasting a $3.5 million year. Like, hello, that's why. Because if you were busy doing the little things, you'd be so distracted. So that is so smart. Okay, last question. Yeah. What positioning advice would you give someone who is looking to grow their business? And for you in the brick and mortar space, what would you say to them?
I think because there is so much competition in most of the large cities, and, I rarely, when you're in a rural area and you are the only one, you don't have to position yourself so much because you're just busy because you're the only one.
Yeah.
And that might be half of, America or wherever you are. But for the other half, I do get a lot of people who are in big cities and there's a ton of competition. And so my goal is, I tell people, I'm like, you put your head down, you disregard all the competition around you, like put on those blinders, focus on you, focus on what you can offer and you can deliver, and only pay attention to that. Because for me, I think that's, again, why I was so successful in the beginning. I had blinders on, not because I said, oh, I'm putting my blinders on and not paying attention. Call me naive. I just was like, oh, there's that many speech practices around me. I had no idea.
I love it.
And so that was the best thing for me, was just figuring out what sets me apart. And we talked about it. For me, it was, I travel to you. It's a boutique service. My goal is, the other thing that I also used to position myself was, we also collaborate. We collaborate with other medical professionals, with teachers, with you. And we also tell parents that we send an electronic note home every session. So again, most people are not giving notes. And if they do, it's not, our note has all the goals listed, what the child worked on, how they performed, and 1 or 2 functional homework things that the teachers, the parents, the kid can work on together, because people are busy. And if you give them too much, they're not going to do it. And then there's no carryover, and therapy is not that useful if there's no carryover outside of therapy. So we do share that with parents. Like, we know you're busy. We know a lot of our parents can't be present in sessions. So you'll get an electronic note every time. And parents love that. They eat that up. Even if they don't use it, they love the accountability, I think, on our end, but also knowing that, I think it also helps keep my therapist accountable, because now, like, if we don't want to put the same thing in the note as we did last week. We want to push a child one step further. So that's another way we've positioned ourselves differently, is in, both in the service that we provide, but how we provide it. We use electronic forms, so it's not antiquated. So parents can just get on their smartphone, fill out the forms, submit them to us. We try to make things so easy to the parents, and I use systems that didn't break the bank, but I tell a lot of my coaching clients in the past, I told them, you need to set things up day one as if you are already making $1 million in your practice, because day 365, you don't want to go back and have to change everything. That's going to be a nightmare. So, and so that's basically also something that I did was I pretended like I already had 100 monthly patients in my, docket. And even though I only had 5, and, that's how I set up my business from day one. And I'm still using the same tools in the private practice from 2014, the same medical records.
I love it.
Yeah, it works.
Oh my God, you're so inspiring. That's so fantastic. Okay. And so for the fellow therapists out there that are like, okay, I need to connect with Hallie, what is the best way to connect with you? And I think you have a freebie to share with them. What is that, please?
Sure. Yes. So they can email clientcare@littlesproutspeech.com. That'll be the fastest way to get to me right now. And for the freebie, if you're a speech language pathologist or occupational therapist or someone who's just interested in seeing what it is, right now, if you go to, I'll send you the link because it's a little bit long, but feedthepeds.com is the waitlist for our course. I would have to look up the link, see the details. I'd have to look up the link to see. I'm looking to see if I have it here. The actual link.
So if you don't have it, I mean, trust me, guys, it'll be in the show notes, but feed the peds to join the wait list, because therein lie, there's going to be a lot of information there. Yeah. And then Hallie said clientcare@feedthepeds.com.
So you can use that one. We actually have feedthepeds.com and clientcare@littlesproutspeech.com. You can reach me either way.
Perfect. So we'll put that in the show notes. And Hallie, thank you so much. Like, it is such a joy to hear when somebody's got their stuff together like the way that you have. And I have no doubt in my mind that this year is going to be monumental, multiple 7 figures, because everything's in order. Yeah. And it's like blue ocean in the space that you're marketing in. And even though there are other competitors, I love what you're saying is that you just head down and you just created all of these systems and all of this thing to, at the end of the day, these clients or patients so taken care of. You're making it easy. You're removing the friction. There is no barrier, presumably. And all things considered, they're going to pick you because of these extra touches that you're giving, which is building that intrinsic value that you have. So congratulations. Like, seriously, this is amazing. It's really exciting. So again, all the show notes to find out how to connect with Hallie. Hallie, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for checking out the Positioning to Profit podcast. If you haven't already done so, please make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new episodes. And also, it would mean the world to me if you would take a quick moment to leave a rating and review on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or your favorite podcast player. It really helps to get the word out about the podcast and, of course, the featured guests. And lastly, please make sure to connect with me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. I'm on all of them. And use hashtag positioning to profit so that I can search you out and connect that way too. All right. Thanks so much. See you next time.